Hello everybody, I'm Raphael Perry and this will be the last video I do on the Lost Eidolons second beta test for a little while because the test is actually due to close sometime in the next 30 to 90 minutes. So I thought I'd do a little series roundup, let you guys know what I think of some things, and then also throw in a few mentions of other things the community have brought up. The next playtest, I don't know exactly when it's going to be, but they'll probably do a little announcement in a while saying, hey guys, we love how this playtest is going, we'll do another one in like 6 months or something. That being said, they're planning on releasing in the fourth quarter of this year, right? So they've only got about another 6 months to go, maybe 7 or 8 at the most. Right, so what do we got first of all? There's lots of good things and bad things, right? So in no particular order, I am not a fan of the new visual novel style cutscenes. I understand they're popular and a lot of people like them. For me, having seen the fully rendered 3D cinematic theatrical cutscenes, I think I prefer those, even though they were clearly not finished and needed quite a bit of work to be polished up. Like the walking animations, the transitions between certain things in those scenes were a bit clunky, right? We've seen some of the slow walking from some of the soldiers in camp here. Additionally, some of the visual novel style cutscenes would have been very difficult to follow without any sort of context and without having seen the 3D fully rendered cutscenes in advance. You know, while watching those, I could see what was going on, see who was in a scene, whereas here, the focus is purely on the one character who's talking. They say, this person's talking now, shut up, nobody else matters. I mean, that feels very sort of selfish in a way. And then, in the old style cutscene, we'd see the other people around, we'd see them react, we'd know who was in a scene. So, and also we'd get to see non-verbal things, we'd get to see people take actions. Clearly, the visual novel cutscenes currently, which are fully voice acted, are using the same scripts that the 3D cutscenes used. You know, it's the exact same dialogue. I feel there should be some adjustments made if they're going to transition to this style fully. Now, additionally, the developers said they were going to do 3 styles of cutscenes, right? They'd have the semi-animated stuff with the artistic things, with the beautiful paintings. They'd have the visual novel style, and they'd have the old style cutscenes as well. I don't think we've seen more than 1 or 2 of those in this entire playthrough. And I'd like to see more of those making a comeback. Next off, let's try and talk about monsters. Let's see, have we got anything monster related here at all? Hellhounds, that'll do. Some people in the community have had, you know, a very interesting discussion about monster weak points. Some people have complained and said, why do the monster weak points change every turn? I want them to stay the same every turn because I put all that effort putting people into the right position to capitalize on those weak points next turn, and then they've changed to something completely useless. Now, I can see the merits of that argument, but also I like to think of it as the monster changing its behaviour over the course of a fight. Additionally, try not to set yourself up for next turn. Try to set yourself up for further activations within this turn, and then next turn, it's a tactical challenge, right? Think of it as an exercise. There's also people saying, look, after I've smashed all the weak points, I want the monster to be dead or nearly dead. And that's lovely when it comes to things like the Hellhounds, with, you know, some people saying, hey, well, look, I can kill a Hellhound in 1 round, no trouble. Yeah, that's pretty true, you generally can. But with something like the Manticore, where you're looking at 120-something health, and if you're not hitting a weak point, you're doing 2 to 6 points of damage at most, typically 3 or 4. Once you've smashed those 3 weak points, it's still going to have about 70 health left. and you're doing 3 or 4 points of damage at a time, there's just no way you'd get the mission done in the time frame required. And in fact, when I was fighting with Manticore, I did make an effort to keep those weak points in existence, to not thoroughly destroy them. I had some opportunities to destroy weak points, and I refrained from doing so that I'd be able to punish those weak points all over again next round with whatever weakness became available. Now, I'm not an expert player, and I did let the Manticore go and sit in the forest, so it was getting a little bit extra guard, which is not ideal. Overall, there's a general community feeling that something needs to change with the monsters, and that creating a system where smashing all the weak points would then lower the monster's defense so it could be easily hurt, or it would just be nearly dead, or dead after all the weak points are destroyed, creates a problem that existed in previous Fire Emblem games, which, while I have no personal experience with, I'll take people's word for it and say, okay, yeah, sure, there's some kind of issue here that needs dealing with. Having arbitrary turn limits, having time limits on the scenarios feels very odd. It does stop people from playing overly defensive, but it does feel a bit unrealistic. Because there's nothing that's going to happen when the time limit expires, which will then cause us to go, oh, we have to stop fighting now. Alright, let's talk about character classes. We have lots of classes, and every hero has 2 classes that they have an affinity with. The affinity seems to be a special skill that only they get when they go into that class. Now, I do like the fact the classes here are colour-coded. We have blue down here, green, some purples, reds, turquoise, and whatever this is supposed to be. That helps you form a chain, so you can go from one of these 2 into Squire to Knight to Templar or Vanguard, right? However, classes do have requirements. So, for example, Templar requires light magic level 3. And I actually went and wrote a list of characters who... Where's the list again? It's C. Characters who would need to swap equipment around to get to new classes. If we presumed I built no new equipment from the merchant, which I probably would have to do this, to gain access to their hardest class, Eden would need some elemental magic training, and quite a bit of it, so he would probably need to swap with Linard's spellbook. Linard would need heavy armor and axe training, so he would need Leon's two-handed axe, and Eden's heavy armor, but Francisco would also need a two-handed axe and light armor if he was going for Berserker. Robert would need to train, and might even want to go through Priest on the way to Templar, let's say. But if we swapped his spear and shield for Marcel's Holy Light spellbook, then the spear would go to Robin as a backup weapon so he could start training for Templar. Now, there's a lot of equipment that would get swapped around, and essentially we would want to do it as early in the game as possible, while people are still fairly low level, the threats are fairly minor, and we can deal with them relatively easily, as opposed to trying to train someone up later on where things get rough. We don't get to actually change equipment until we get to camp, and that is about 3 or 4 chapters in. By which point people are a bit locked into their fighting styles, so obviously everyone has 2 or 3 main skills that they level up very quickly. We don't need to worry about those in terms of getting into character classes, but for others we have to use the training system, and it would be nice to be able to swap people's equipment around a little bit earlier on. Also, this is what a hero looks like. Remember him, he's brilliant. Man, I've given Robert so much praise. They're going to nerf his defensive ability, aren't they, again, because he's too good. He's not too good. It's a really nice... It's very easy to use that ability and go, okay, mate, just defend again. Now, What else? I've talked about equipment and classes. Speaking of equipment, actually, we do get a lot of potions. I don't know if I should have been using many more consumables than usual. And we don't get very many gifts. This friendship system. This is 8 chapters, well, let's say 7 chapters into the game, because there's a few more things we can do in camp here. And the game's only supposed to be 20 or 21 chapters long. I think it would be very hard to get maximum rapport with anyone at the current rate it's available to increase. I think some more bonuses in conversation for taking certain decisions, or just having some more gifts available, would be a really good thing. The rapport system feels like it's not going to get used for very much, and as it currently feels, you might get one person absolutely maxed out, and for the recruitable people, we recruited Karin, we're probably not going to be able to recruit Gabriel now, outside of it being very late on in the campaign. I'm not sure how intentional that is, because if you're playing with permadeath, having these recruitable characters to fill gaps in your roster is a really good idea. And having them be really hard to recruit kind of counteracts the notion of having them available in the first place. I don't know how many available recruitable characters there will be in the whole campaign. I'd like to see maybe a few more appearing in camp, making it a little bit more lively, perhaps. Also, that buckle is the wrong way around. It literally cannot work. The same goes for... Come on, Robin. This buckle here. And of course, Leonard's in the same robe, so he also suffers from a backwards belt buckle of impossibility. Minor niggle, but it does get to me. They did a good job of making Clara a very dislikable person. I mean, she's pretty, but she has a horrible personality. I strongly suspect she's going to be up to no good and probably assassinate someone important we're working with, either the Royal Prince, pretender to the throne, or General Isoro, or possibly both. And then she'll just be smug and go, "What? I was getting paid?" Maybe she'll even fight us. It seems a little bit too telegraphed, a little bit too obvious, so maybe she'll actually be recruitable. I don't know. Perhaps recruiting her would help prevent that from happening. Now that's an interesting possibility. Currently the story seems very linear. So I don't think we'll be able to change anything that big. Now additionally, oh yeah, we got nice priesty robes, finally, for Lady Marshall. Oh yeah, so what else was I going to say before I sound off? They're selling the battles as a main draw, right? A main attraction. And yet I can play 2.5 hours of gameplay, and only like half an hour to an hour of that will be the battle. 30 to 45 minutes, typically longer with the sieges and longer battles later on. Now, as far as I can tell, the current core gameplay loop is cutscenes, camp, cutscenes, battle, and then, loops around again. And the cutscenes and the camps seem to take up significantly more time than the battle itself. Now, the camp management stuff is fun. You don't need to spend a lot of time doing it. You can skip it and go into the battles and have a harder experience if you want. But I think they should either make the battles longer or have more choices and things you can do in them that will make them more interesting. Because as it currently stands, the battles feel like a side attraction in a game which is supposed to heavily revolve around them. Additionally, I played through this time on the hard difficulty. It didn't feel any harder than in the first playtest. I believe that the hard difficulty was the original difficulty in the first playtest and the only one available, and then they reduced it to make an easier difficulty setting for this playtest, rather than making a harder difficulty play setting that was harder than last time. I'm not sure on that one. Maybe it might just be that I'd played through the missions before, so I had a rough idea what I was doing, even though it was about 8 months ago. Also, for this playtest, the game was available on Xbox. I do not have an Xbox, I play on PC, but I do hope that all the playtesters playing on Xbox got to enjoy it and it functioned well and there was no janky, ganky, wonky stuff going wrong. Well, that about wraps it up for this playtest. I'll pop this video up after the last video in the series goes up, after Mission 8. And while there is a little bit more stuff in camp I could do and record, I'm kind of heading out the door in the next sort of 20 minutes. So, yeah, busy evening ahead of me, I know. Alright. I hope you guys have enjoyed this little sort of series roundup on the second Lost Eidolons playtest, and I'll look forward to seeing you all next time there's Lost Eidolons content to share. In the meantime, have fun everyone, and if you want to watch any of the other videos on my channel, you are absolutely welcome. I do cover plenty of other games. At the moment, I'm playing Steve Jackson's Sorcery, about 3/4 of the way through, and also a few other games as well. Okay guys, have an absolutely lovely time. Thank you very much for watching. I'll hope to see you all soon in whatever I put out next, and if you do come, just know I'll be very grateful. Goodbye for now everyone. See you soon.